go. So starting the next parak, the fifth parak, and that's Apal P. That's Nun Dalet Amud Beis, and we'll be doing Nun Hey today. So the parak starts back to Kesuvos. Apal, we've been in Kesuvos already. Also many daf already. Apal Pisha Amru Besula Gavam Masayim Balmana Mana and Rotz Losaf Hil Meya Mana Yosef. Even though the amount of Kesuba for a virgin is 200 zuz and for a widow is 100 zuz, but if the husband wants to add on, he may do whatever he wants, even 100 mana, he can do whatever he wants, which is really simple. The Gemara is going to ask the Kasha Pshita, goes without saying, why shouldn't he be able to? The Gemara is going to say, there is a Chiddush, it's not so simple. Next part of the Mishnah, which also continues something about Tosefes. This is what we call Tosefes. What we just finished talking about Lahosef, he wants to add on. Tosefes also, Agav, in the standard Ksuba, it also has Tosefes, and Ban Ashkenazim, it's hundreds of kukin kesefs. Kukin is some kind of Polish coin, amount of silver, and the standard Tosefes that the Chassan gives is 100 kukin kesef. Also, it says over there that he evaluates the nedunya that the collar brought in, also to be 100 kukin kesef, Sachako, Masayim kukin kesef, kesef tzoruf, refined silver, and also the 200 zuz, that's a standard ksuba. So there is Tosefes. Now it says, now what if he died or he divorced her from Erison before Nisuin? So she does get ksuba. The Amrisha says it's ksuba from Erison also. But the question is she also eligible to get the Tosefes from Erison? Maybe only for Nisuin. That's a machlokas. We had this machlokas mentioned earlier. Tanakama says that if she became widowed or divorced, both from Erison or from Nisuin, she gets everything. She even gets the Tosefes, even from Erison. But if Elizabeth Azariah Omer Mina Nisuin go over Sakol, that's only if she was after the Nisuin, then she's also eligible to get everything, even the Tosefes. But Mina Erison, Besula go over Masayim, Mana Mana, Shalakasav La'ela Manasla. But the Tosefes only intended to give it to her if they're going to have the Nisuin also. Just for the Erison alone, he didn't mean to give the extra additional Tosefes that he on his own willingly gave, only from the Nisuin, and therefore if the ksuba is going to be collected from Erison, either because he died or because he divorced her, so she's only eligible for the 200. So that was the second issue. And the third issue is, we had this also mentioned already, is it possible to be mochel the ksuba? Rabbi Yehuda Omer, or la mana mana because that the husband has to give the ksuba, it sounds like, but the woman could be mochel. So it says he writes her a star that I'm giving you a ksuba of Masayim Zuz, like a regular ksuba, but she can write him back a shover. She writes him back a receipt that I already received 100, even though she didn't, and that's okay. She was mochel half of it. It is interesting that the Mishnah only gives an example of being mochel partial mechila, doesn't talk about a complete mechila. And there's one more line here. Well, that to Almana he writes a regular ksuba of 100 zuz, and she could give him a receipt, a shover that she already received 50, even though she didn't, and she was mochel half. Interesting that even Rabbi Yehuda only gives examples of being of a partial mechila, not completely. I don't know why. I did see that Malach Shlomo on the Mishnah, he says that even Rabbi Yehuda holds that she can't be mochel everything, which we had some difficulty because a couple of days ago we spoke about mochelas. There is such thing as being mochel ksuba, and here it comes out that Rabbi Meir is going to say in a second you're not allowed to. Should we pass like you're not allowed to be mochel ksuba? And now the Malach Shlomo says, and even according to Rabbi Yehuda, only a partial mechila, not a complete mechila. So I didn't get clarity yet. But what's the case of being mochel ksuba, mochelas? But anyway, here it says according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's possible to be mochel partially. But Meir Omer kol apochas l'psulam b'masayim v'lamana mana reza b'dilas nus. If she was mochel part of it, so then it's considered nus because they have to be married with a ksuba. And it seems to pass like Rabbi Meir that you can't be mochel ksuba. You have to have a ksuba. Not even half. Not even half. Not even partial. Even that. That Rabbi Yehuda holds partial mechila. Rabbi Meir says no mechila at all. So that's the mission. We had like three parts of the mission. The first one was that you cut the most of more than the minimum if you want to, which seems to be simple. We'll see in a second. Second point is if he is giving her the ksuba from the Erison because he died or he divorced her, so does she also get the Stephus? That's the machlokas. Tanakama says yes. Elazar says no. Everyone agrees she gets the ksuba, but she doesn't get the machlokas if she gets Tosefes. And the third point is it possible to be mochel? Rabbi Yehuda says it is possible to be mochel partially. And Rabbi Meir says no, not at all. Can't be mochel at all. And Agav, the Malach Shlomo says, I didn't see more sources that it's not even Rabbi Yehuda holds you can be mochel completely. So the first kasha is obvious. Of course, you could add on, do whatever you want. You could add on ksuba. Why not? Pshita. Why not? Why shouldn't you be able to add on to the ksuba if you want to? You might think that the Chazal made a set amount, a standard, because then it becomes competition. That one chassan is going to give more, another chassan is going to give less, and it's going to become a busha for the one that can't afford to give a big suba. Kamash Malan, they didn't make such a consideration, and you could give more. You could give. It is interesting that by Ashkenazim there is a standard nowadays. Hundreds cooking kesef. They do write in the ksuba something standard, and if someone wants to, he could write more. I think about the spot. We're talking about the sefes, right? And we have over there Kesufta, the Tesefta, there's the Kesufta, Tesefta Dain, and then the Dain. Okay, it all means this. For this Kesuba, for this Tesefes, for this Nadunya. So the standard is to write 100 cooking kesef, but you could write more. As far as them, I think they do write. Each one writes so much as he wants to.
Anyway, when it comes to the American courts, the lady gets 50% anyway. So forget about the 100 thing. That's a joke. No, I'm saying whatever it says, I'm saying, but it's a small stuff. Right. If you get divorced in America, if he's a billionaire, then he's giving her half the money.
So the next part of the Gemara talks about the word lahosef. That the way the Mishnah terms it is called the tosefes. It's called an addition. Why did the Gemara after Mishnah call it a tosefes? He wants to give her a present. He gives her a present. It has nothing to do with calling it a tosefes. In matzah lahosef, even 100 money can be made. What's a lichtov lo katana? Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. That it could have said in the Mishnah that he wants to give more, so it doesn't have to say the point about being mosif. It could say he wants to give more. Why does it say that he adds on? What's a lichtov lo katana? It doesn't say the words. If he wanted to, he could write to her more. Ella what's a lahosif? It says the word if he wants to be mosif. What does that mean? He wants to add on. That this addition is considered the same has same halachas as the ksuba. It means you might look at the extra, unrelated. He wants to give her a present, whatever. It doesn't have the dinam of ksuba, so it says no. Tanai kisuba kiksuba. Now the word tanai kisuba is a little strange because till now we didn't use the word. We use tanai kisuba to mean certain conditions that talks about ben andichrin, ben anukvan, atayas v'bebesi, mezonos. We had different things about what tanai kisuba. He has the redeemer, he has the barrier. But now there's a different term for the word tanai. Here it means tosefes. As if we would say Tosefes Ksuba Kiksuba Dami. It is, they do talk about the Rishon if it means the other Tanaim also, but as far as Asagi goes, Tanai Kisuba Kiksuba Dami means that the Tosefes also gets all of the dinam of the Ksuba, just as if it will be Ksuba. It becomes a bigger Ksuba. It's not Ksuba plus something else that's unrelated, and present, but it has all the dinam of a Ksuba. The Gemara is going to list down now all the ramifications of the Ksuba, Tosefes Ksuba to be considered Ksuba, and it gives a list of about 14 things that the Tosefes also is the same thing as the Ksuba. And it starts off, Nafkamina. Some of this list is going to be Chazara. We had already the concepts. Some is going to be new. We'll have it later on. And the Gemara is giving a big list of the halachas of Ksuba, and that the Tanai Ksuba has the Tosefes Ksuba has the same halachas. And that's why the Mishnah uses the word Tosefes, Mosif, that is called in addition to the Ksuba. It's also like Ksuba. The first one is the Mocheres, or the Mochelas, more or less the same. That if a woman sells her Ksuba, so does that include the Tosefes? Yes. That not only if she says, I'm selling somebody my Ksuba, and they made a certain price, then it comes later on. What did that include? It includes the Tosefes also. Not only the 200 Manam Masayim, even the Tosefes also included in the sale. And so to Mochelas, if the woman is Mochel the Ksuba, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if she's Mochel the Ksuba, so then she's Mochel the whole thing. Not only the Ksuba, even the Tosefes Ksuba. The Tosefes is also included in the Mechila. We spoke about a second ago, if Yehuda would hold, you can do the whole thing, only you have to leave something over. But as far as the Tosefes, that's just like the Ksuba, unless you specify, the Tosefes was also waived. The third thing is Moredas. We didn't have this yet, but we'll have it later on. Moredas means if a woman is, literally means rebelling, that she's not willing to have relations, and there's the halach if the husband is not willing to have relations, the wife is not, that's called the Moredas, that they're rebelling against the union. So the halach is that the Bezdin first tries to coerce, and they minimize the ksuba. That means that the wife that she has a ksuba, that ever if he divorces her, so she's eligible, or he dies, he's eligible to a certain amount, manam sign. So they start deducting that now if she's moredas each week that she's a moredas, so they deduct a certain amount, and even if she shapes up, but still the ksuba is deducted now. She's not going to have 200. She's going to have minus. It says the Mishnah later on how much they deduct each week, and then they go down till the ksuba, till zero. and then he wants me to divorce her without any ksuba. There's no chiyuv ksuba. So here the Mishnah says that the Tosefes is also deducted also. That they start deducting and they deduct the Tosefes also.
So
Not
it
all,
would take longer, there's a Tosefos.
right, but I think the point is, yes, it could be that that's true, that they would still, right. But there's also a point that there might be something that there's a certain thing that you stop and it doesn't go, you don't make a minus, you don't make it that now she owes him, that the Gemara also talks about over there, that you don't say that now we're going to start, or let's say the Nadunya. So you start, do you start deducting the Nadunya also, other things. So the Tefes Ksuba is the same thing as Ksuba, just like you deduct the Ksuba, you deduct the Tosefes. It goes into the deductible. The next one is Pogemus. Pogemus means, literally, Pogemus means like she made to make a dent. The point would be that if a woman says, the husband says, I paid your Ksuba. I paid it up already. And the woman says, you didn't pay the whole thing, you paid part of it only. She's pogem. She makes a dent in the ksuba. She agrees that part of it was paid up, but she doesn't agree the whole thing was paid up. So there's a lacha that she has to make a shvuah. She wants to collect the rest, like a modav miktas, and she has to swear that the rest is still owed to her. So what if she was pogem to Tosefes? She says that you didn't pay me any of the ksuba. You only paid me part of the addition. That's also has a din of ksuba, and also she needed a shvuah on the rest also. The next thing is Lutovas that we had yesterday, that the woman is eligible to mazonos until she demands the ksuba. Once she demands the ksuba, then she doesn't get mazonos anymore. So what if she demanded the Tosefes? She didn't demand the ksuba itself. She just demanded the Tosefes, that the husband died or divorced her, and I guess no, they died, because there's no mazonos anyway by divorcing. The mazonos is by dying. So Yisomim were paying her mazonos, and then she demanded the ksuba, so they stopped paying her the mazonos. But even if she just demanded the Tosefes, also they stopped giving her mazonos. That's tovas. That's tovas. Pogemus is good. Pogemus meant that she was mowed, that the part of it was paid. The next one is overis al das. The word das means law, and she transgresses the law. What does that mean? There's certain laws about Abbas Yisrael, how she's supposed to dress, other things. And if she transgresses that, so then she loses ksuba. So this is saying that she also loses Tosefes. She doesn't only lose the ksuba of 200, she loses the Tosefes also. That's going to be later on. It's going to talk about what's included in overis al das. Top of the next page. Also, the shevach. The shevach means whatever was improved. What is that talking about? So Rashi says that if when the husband died, he left over a certain amount of money, estate, and that's what the almana is going to collect the ksuba from. What if the property improved after the husband died? The improvement which came after the husband died. So she's not eligible to collect the ksuba from that. Rashi says that Isha doesn't take the shevach. She only has a right to take the land that was there, but if it got improved and it got more valuable after the husband died, so she's not eligible to collect from that. So she's not eligible to collect the Tosefes either. Tosefes nami lo gavia mishevach sheshipkunu chasam lacham misavav. She doesn't have a right to collect from the improvement of the land after the husband died. Just like Suba, also Tosefes Suba. The next word is Shvua. So here Shvua means many things. Rashi gives a list of things. One of them is also Pogemus. It's interesting. Rashi talks about how come the Mishnah, how come the Brisa or the Gemara had to list it a second ago Pogemus. Rashi gives a few examples when she has to make a Shvua. Rashi says, Hanifra shelo b'fanav. If she's collecting the ksuba and the husband's not there, she has to swear that she didn't receive it. Or another case, if one aid is testifying that she got the ksuba already, also she has to swear against him. Or if she's getting collecting the ksuba from mortgaged fields that were already sold, or from the somim, all these cases she has to make a shvuah. So even for the Tosefes, also she needs a shvuah. Rashi has the kasha. Pogemus also is in that list. Why is the Gemara listed separately? But that's all included. Rashi says a teretz, but the point is that anything she needs a shvuah for, she needs a shvuah for the Tosefes also. Whatever would make her make a shvuah to collect, in order to collect the ksuba, she also would need a shvuah in order to collect the Tosefes. The next thing is shviyas. Shviyas means Pogemus means that she agrees that part of it was paid already, and she has to make a shvuah in order to collect whatever she claims was not paid yet. She has to make a shvuah also, even if she's pogem the Tosefes, even if she says that the ksuba was not paid, but part of the Tosefes was paid, she'd also have to make a shvuah in order to collect whatever's remaining. Shviyas is coming up. That's the thing about Shemitah, about Shemitah's Ksafim, that's coming up by Rosh Hashanah. If anybody has a loan, so the Shemitah makes Shemitah Shamot Kalbal Mashayado. that you're not allowed to demand payment of the loans that are owed to you. That's why there's a principle. If everyone makes a principle before Rosh Hashanah, usually they do it every Rosh Hashanah and the shuls usually. And then then you're giving over your loans to Bezdin, then you wouldn't be allowed to collect it. But the point is that the Torah says that the loans are uncollectible from after Shemitah. So how about a ksuba? Is a ksuba? Everybody has a ksuba. So is that considered a loan that when Shemitah comes, so then the loan is uncollectible? So it says no. That's what?
Surely not. It's a lifetime.
And it could even be, I'm not sure, if even if the husband died and she's owed ksuba, also could be that's not considered a loan. It says here, only if she said, like she made a loan out of it. She said, now you owe me this and this amount of money. You could also by credit, things in the store. There are different things that sometimes that is owed on a certain way, certain form of owing, and you could change it into a loan. But if it's not changed into a loan, so it's not under the din of Shemitah, which is Meshamet loans. So the ksuba, when someone owes ksuba, that's not called a loan, and the shvius doesn't take it off. And the Tosefos is also included in that the Shemitah's ksafim also does not stop the collection of Tosefos ksuba. The next thing is Lakosev called Nechasav Labanav. If somebody wrote all of his estate to his children, so he did that in his lifetime, he gave away all of his nechasim to his children, and he even gave away the amount that now is really supposed to go to the wife's ksuba. So over there, there's an issue about mechila that he also gave something to her. He gave everything to the sons, and he gave also a piece of land, something he gave to the wife also. Doesn't cover the ksuba. If she accepted it, so then she's mochel. That's a way of being mochel the rest of the ksuba, and she's accepting this piece of land for the rest of the ksuba. So here we're saying Tosefos is also included in that. If the same way she's mochel the rest of the ksuba by accepting this piece of land, so she's also mochel the Tosefos also. Just as the Rashi on that, we'll have most of these cases later on. But here, last one was in Gittin, this one is in Baba Basra. So it says here, Kasav L'ishto Karka Kolshu of the Ksubasa. Kedisa B'Yeshnochen, Baba Basra 132. Over there it says that if somebody wrote his children all of his estate, and he wrote to his wife a piece of karka, a small piece of karka Kolshu, and she accepted it, so she loses her ksuba. Here it says she loses the Tosefos also. And the next halacha, Ligvos Min HaKarka, that she's only eligible to collect from the karka. We said the other day that there's a kanas agaonim that nowadays they collect even from a talcum. That's why it says in the ksuba, afilu migliva dal kaspoi, even from the shirt on my back. But minadin, she can't collect ksuba only from karka, and that applies to Tosefos also. That minadin, you're not supposed to collect the Tosefos either only from karka. Again, nowadays in the kanas agaonim that they do collect even from the talcum, but minadin is only from karka, the ksuba, and also the Tosefos.
The one before that, I thought that the ksuba, if he gives all his property over to his sons, that doesn't include the ksuba.
Right, surely it should not. But here the case was that he gave her a piece of land also when she accepted it. Before, when he was dying, whatever he gave, he wrote all of his nechasim to his children. He gave his wife also a piece of land, which does not include the kosev kol nechasav lebanav. The kosev kol nechasav lebanav. 4 words.
He wrote it.
He wrote all of his estate to his sons.
But and hidden behind that is that there's a piece of property for her.
Right. Rashi has that on. Also, here's the Rashi. Because of lishto karka kolshu. So right. So now we're saying that she loses the Tosefos also. If she accepted the karka kolshu, so that shows that she's losing her ksuba and she loses her Tosefos ksuba also. That's in the Baba Basra.
How does he bypass the original the claim to that he'll give all these possessions to his sons?
No, he said he's giving everything to his sons, and besides, a small piece is given to his wife, and she accepted it. So that's a way of saying that I'll take this as the ksuba, and he doesn't know her ksuba anymore. I don't know how all this fits with the din of mechila. No, she's not Talmid Chacham. She's just a regular person, and Chazal are evaluating what a person means when they do that.
Who said she was helping? She was so in real life, she may lose it. You could say a million things.
Yeah.
Maybe she didn't want to make a fight. You could say a million things about it. I don't know why.
So the Chazal usually they're going to analyze that. Did she mean not to make a fight? And maybe they do say sometimes that she didn't want to, intimidate him or something like that. They do talk about those things. You're asking how do you know each time is like that? Maybe it's just a robe. But that's what Chazal are doing. Once I had a similar question that there's something in Allah. I asked Salman Goldberger, and he said that in all governments it's like that. Like, don't be surprised. if they say that the contract means this and this, if you didn't write that, the small print, you didn't know the law, you didn't know what the contract means. And nowadays you have to go to a lawyer. Don't make any kind of deal without going to a lawyer. So maybe you're supposed to do that. When you make some kind of deal, there are some givens, and you have to what? Go to a Talmud Chacham, make sure that the contract, what it includes, what it doesn't. But he said it's not a Jewish problem. If you say that a person doesn't know what he's doing sometimes because he's not learned in real estate and these things, that's why they have people that help out with that. But I don't know better the answer. The next thing is also when we said Libus Karka, that it's only collectible from Karka. We just pointed out a footnote that nowadays we have the Takanas Agonim even from the shirt on the back, but Minadin is only from Karka, not only the Ksuba, even the Tosefes. The next thing is Minaziburis, that's the low grade land. That the woman only has the right to collect from the low grade land, not from the Idis, Baininus. So too the Tosefes also is the same, only a right to collect from the Ziburis. And another halacha, Kolzman, this should be number 13, Kolzman Shi Bevesavia. There's something about as long as she's in her father's home. So Rashi brings down later on, there's a Mishnah about, there's a certain, I forgot how you say it in English, but there's a certain, it's part, like it expires. The right to collect the ksuba, if she didn't collect the ksuba after the husband died, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So it says 25 years. There's a 25-year limit. And if she didn't collect it, she doesn't get it anymore. And the Machlokes in the Mishnah is not talking about when she's being when she's being by her father's home, or as being when she's by her husband's home. There's a tzad to say each way. You can see later on. She went home, right? She after her husband died, she went home, and the Yisomim are still being mefarnes her. The Yisomim are supporting her, and 25 years passed and she didn't demand ksuba. So there talks about that. It could be that she was mochel. Why didn't she demand it such a long time? It could be that she was mochel. It's gonna not. It could be. We're gonna say that she was mochel. If she was in her father's home and for 25 years she didn't demand it, so then that means that she waived it. And in contrast, if she was not in her father's home, she was living by the Yisomim. The Yisomim were giving her the home. What? She didn't. Why? Because maybe she's embarrassed to demand the ksuba. I forgot if I said when I said it now. I said that she was getting mizonos by her father's house and home. Also, let's see what Rashi says. I said wrong. That the case is that she's not getting support. She went home and she's not getting supported from the Yisomim. They're not doing anything for her. So then there's a question: how come she didn't demand the ksuba? It's a kasha. If she's with them and they're being mefarnes her, so it could be she could say, I was embarrassed that they're being so nice to me, they're supporting me, they're giving me, they're doing everything right, and I'm going to say I want the ksuba. I was embarrassed. It doesn't mean that I was mochel. But if she's home and she's not getting anything from them, so why is she waiting 25 years not to demand the ksuba? It must be that she was mochel. And the chiddush of Agamar is v'chein tosefes. That means that she's also mochel to tosefes also, not just the ksuba. She was mochel to tosefes. And the last thing is.
So it's called statute of limitations.
And what is the reason that they make this
statute of limitations?
Yes.
They probably think that someone
was mochel, the mochel, and therefore if they didn't, they were mochel. That's what the point. That's the point. Okay. And the last thing, number 14, for the ksubas b'nin dichrin. Ksubas b'nin dichrin means that, which we had a couple of times. That means that clause in the ksuba is that even if the wife dies first, and there is no ksuba, but eventually when the husband dies and his estate is going to be divided to all his Yorshin, but first each one gets the ksuba of his mother, and that might make a difference because one might have a more ksuba and one might have more children, whatever the case might be. So therefore the ksuba goes to the Yorshin of each wife, whatever ksuba that was. How about the Tosefes? Also the Tosefes also. Right. So in the word, all the Gemara said now was Tosefes ksuba kiksuba. That's the reason why the Mishnah calls it a Tosefes. It doesn't just call it a present or he gives it to her. It's a Tosefes. It's an addition. And it has all the halachas of ksuba in these 14 different issues. Tosefes ksuba, kiksuba. The Gemara called it Tanai ksuba, kiksuba. And that's the meaning over here, that Tosefes ksuba has the din of ksuba. Next Gemara, let's end that sugya, a new sugya. We're on Nun Hey, the 4th line. And it comes in a sugya of ksubas b'nin dichrin over here for a couple of lines. I don't know why it wasn't mentioned in the parak before, but I asked earlier why it wasn't mentioned in the previous parak. That's the sugya of b'nin dichrin. It's not really the sugya here. It came in the last word just said ksubas b'nin dichrin because we're talking about Tosefes. It has nothing to do with the next sugya. So I don't know why the Gemara didn't. I don't know the answer. Why did the Gemara not talk about this in the previous parak? Itmar ksubas b'nin dichrin. From Badisa Amri lo tofim mishabdi because Yarsim Tanan. So we go back to the Mishnah before where it said, maybe to scroll back a little bit, where it said, that was a couple of pages ago, there was a Mishnah, and the question is in the Girsa over there. The Girsa, where does it say the Nusach of B'nai Dichrin?
What's your problem?
To collect. So here's the Mishnah, and it says, here's the Nusach of B'nai Dichrin. It says, even if you didn't write the B'nai Dichrin, it still takes effect. And one of the words, B'nai Dichrin, the Havin L'cham Yinoi, Inon Yarsin, here's the word Yarsin over here, Inon Yarsin, Kesef Kesuvos, Yasser Al Chokein De'Mechuan, that the male sons that you're going to have from me, they're going to inherit. Here's the word Yarsin. Yarsin means to inherit. They're going to inherit the money of your Ksuba, besides whatever they divide with their brothers. That's the Nusach of B'nai Dichrin. So here it says the word Yerusha. And there's another Nusach, some have the word Yazbun, not Yersun, but Yazbun. Yazbun means to take. They're going to take, then they're not to inherit, but to take. And the Gemara says now that there's a difference between these two versions. Does it work as Yerusha, or does it work as getting, as taking a ksuba? So the truth is that in the case of B'nai Dichrin means that the wife died before the husband, there is no ksuba. And when he dies, he's bequeathing his estate to his sons. And there's a clause that some of it doesn't get divided equally, some goes to the amount of the ksuba, with the surface, everything, it goes to each one's yorshim, each one of the wives' yorshim. But it really is Yerusha from him. So the question is, are they eligible to collect from Mishubadim? That means that if the father had sold some property, and now in order to collect the Kesuvos B'nai Dichrin, the Yisomim, they want to go to the buyers and foreclose on what was mortgaged, because it was sold after it was Kesuvos B'nai Dichrin. So that depends on this question. Is it considered Yerusha, or is it considered collecting Ksuba? If it's considered Yerusha, you don't go to Lekufos to collect Yerusha. Yerusha is only what's left at home. If the father sold something, the Yarshim have no reason to say, we're going to collect it because we want to Yarshin it. Yerusha is only what's left over. So if the Kesuvos B'nai Dichrin works as Yerusha from the father, so there's no right to go to the Mishubadim. But if it works as a Ksuba, that we look at it like it's a Ksuba, so the same way Ksuba can collect from Mishubadim, so too, the Kesuvos B'nai Dichrin can be collected from Yarshim. That's what the Gemara says by Yash, that there was machlokus between Pumpadisa and B'nai Masa Machasya. Whereas that we're on the Afnun Hay, and that's how it reads over here. Kesuvos B'nai Dichrin, Pumpadisa says they cannot collect from the Mishubadim. The Yarshim cannot go to the Mishubadim to collect the Ksuba, that the amount of money which was going to come to the mother for Ksuba. Because it says in the Mishnah Yarson that they're going to inherit. Inheritance has nothing to do with Mishubadim. You can't go to the buyers to collect the Yerusha. Yerusha is only what's left over. That was not sold. But the name Masa Machasya, the people of Masa Machasya, that's the name in Bavel, of a city in Bavel. One place was called Pumpadisa, one place was called Masa Machasya. They could collect from where it talks about what B'nai Dichrin is. It doesn't say Yarson. We have Yarson. It says Yazbun. They have the Nusach of Yazbun that they should take. And taking means it's like a Ksuba. So we give it a din of Ksuba, the same way Ksuba can be collected from Mishubadim, so too the B'nai Dichrin can be collected from Mishubadim. And that's the halachas like Pumpadisa, that is considered Yerusha, and the talk of the Mishnah before by Yas said the word Yarson, it means Yerusha, and therefore there's no right to collect from Mishubadim. That's the end of the sugya that came in over here. And because it had a machlokus between Pumpadisa and Basa Machasya, so we get a bonus of another 3 machlokusim coming up over here. I just put it in parentheses because it seems to be a tangent, and there's going to be 3 cases between Pumpadisa and Basa Machasya, and then we're going to get back to the sugya of our Mishnah. So here goes. It also has to do two of them have to do a ksuba, but the third one doesn't have to. So this case is totally the isnu beinayu. Below shvur, that's not a machlokis. But lesnu beinayu is a machlokis. From Badisa Amri below shvur, B'nai Masa Machasya Amri b'shvur, Lochasa below shvur. What's all this about? So when a woman comes to collect ksuba, so if I'm not sure. That's a short circuit by me. I didn't figure it out yet. But here it says if she's coming to collect Nataltalim, that the husband had designated for a ksuba. Maybe that's different because he designated it. He designated a certain Nataltalim for a ksuba. Okay, that's the case, that the husband set aside money and said, my wife, if I ever die or divorce you, so this is the money that you should collect the ksuba from, and it's still here. And they still and they are. Isnu is like yeshnam, that they yesh is like yesh. Ishnu beinayu, they are presently here. The husband had set aside in taltalim that the wife could collect her ksuba from if it ever comes time to collect, and that's still here. Let's say it would be a piece of jewelry that's worth the amount of the ksuba, whatever it might have been, a bar of gold, whatever it is. He put it aside in the taltalim and he said, this is the money which it's not yours yet, but it's designated for ksuba. If ever it comes time to pay ksuba, this is going to be what I'm going to pay from. So then when she comes to collect it, she doesn't have to make a shvuah. She doesn't have to swear that I didn't get paid yet. Because that usually when a woman comes to collect the ksuba, so we're scared that maybe she got paid already. Maybe that was this point, even though he didn't pay the ksuba before the time, maybe he set aside what they call srori. The word srori, they translate in Nasqual as a bundle. That means that he gave her a package that this should be set aside for ksuba in case I have to give you ksuba. This is what's designated for it. So here, there's no chash that she had such a thing. Here, she doesn't have to make a shvuah. Usually, the reason she makes a shvuah is because she might have had something set aside. He gave to her something set aside in case I ever owe you ksuba. That should be it. But over here, that this is the thing. Rashi says this is the bundle. If she has, we know that this is the bundle. She says this is the bundle that I want to collect from because he had given it to me for pikadon that I should hold on to if I ever need ksuba. So now when she takes it, she doesn't have to swear that I didn't get another bundle because nobody gives two bundles. Nobody gives two swearing. Nobody gives to their wife two designated monies in case he's going to have ksuba. He gives her one. If anything, he gave her one. So if she's coming to collect, nothing was designated. So we said maybe something was designated. She says nothing was designated to me, so give me ksuba. Maybe the husband gave you something in your safe deposit box that he said in case I ever owe you ksuba. So here, if she's coming to collect the thing which was designated, there's no chash that two things were designated. So she doesn't need a shvuah. But how about lesnu beinayu? What about if that metalcum which was originally designated is not here anymore? I don't know the case exactly. What does it mean that it's not here? Maybe she stole it. Maybe she's hiding it. But that's the issue over here. Maybe we know that it was lost, that it's not here, that the money is not here, and now she wants to collect. She wants to collect, and she says, "Don't be choshesh. There was another kind of bundle because the bundle that we know about it was lost. It seems everybody knows that it was lost. That wasn't her chiddush. Everybody knows that the bundle I had set aside was lost. So Yechoshesh that he gave her another bundle. Maybe that's the machlokas. But Medisa says she doesn't need a shvuah because if he gave her a bundle, even though it got, he wanted to give her another bundle. And no, she doesn't need a shvuah because even though the original bundle was lost, maybe he gave her then a second bundle. That she doesn't need the shvuah because since he gave her a bundle, that's the bundle that he gave. A husband doesn't give his wife two bundles as a precaution. So if that bundle was lost, you also can assume he didn't give her anything else, and therefore she collect without a shvuah. That's a bonus we got.
Means that she can collect
without swearing that she didn't,
lost.
or without swearing that she didn't get anything else. He didn't put aside anything else in her custody that she could collect from. She's not hiding anything else. It wasn't like we're always choshesh that maybe the husband gave her something on the side in case you have to collect suba. This is what you should have. You should have it ready to collect from. So here that there was something that he had set aside and it got lost. And I think everybody knows that it was lost. That wasn't the chiddush. Everybody knows that it was lost. Are you choshesh that he might have given her another bundle subsequently? I'm saying a possibility. I didn't look into it too much.
Oh, I see. There is no second bundle.
That's the question. Is there a second bundle that maybe she has? So if you say below shvuah, means not choshesh for a second bundle. He gave her one bundle, and then if it got lost, and we know that it's lost, we have to pay for the ksuba.
We have to pay for it.
And then the Yibas Machashi says maybe
right.
Right.
And that's the law.
That's the halacha, right? The next case, another bonus, also about ksuba. That he designated for a piece of land with the four borders. He said, if you're gonna have to collect ksuba, there's a piece of land over here. The truth is that even if the ksuba is on all lands, even if this piece of land is going to be destroyed, as we said before, that one of the Tanai ksuba is that even if he didn't write everything is meshubet, everything's meshubet, even if he does designate a piece of land. But here, the first thing, if you go to that piece of land, that's the point that you should take. So here the case was that he designated for a piece of land with all four boundaries. He delineated which piece of land is being set aside to the ksuba. And again, now she wants to collect it. And the question is, maybe she got a bundle besides that. Maybe she got a bundle of money as to keep in custody just in case she needs the ksuba. No, below shvuah. That surely doesn't need a shvuah because this is what he set aside. He doesn't set aside two things. If he gave her a karka designated to collect the ksuba, there's no chash. He was giving her also a bundle of money. Why should he give it two times? Yeah. So that everybody else is below shvuah. But how about bechad metzra? That he only designated one of the four borders, that the piece of land which starts in this border, that's going to be designated for your ksuba, but he didn't say the other three borders. So it's not mugdar, it's not a defined piece of land. So what's the question? That is the chash that he gave her a bundle of money besides that. So the tzad, Rashi seems to say that since it only was one border, that's not really defined, and therefore the wife doesn't exactly know. She doesn't feel comfortable about this.
How big it is.
How big it is, right? How much are they going to give me? So since it's not a defined, so it's not considered setting aside anything, and therefore he might have given her a bundle besides that, and therefore she might need a shvua. So that's the machlokas. But this says also below shvua that since this is the thing that's designated, even if it's only one boundary, we'll figure out later on how much is going to be 200 zuz worth and which direction it's going to go. We'll figure it out. Besna will evaluate, but we know that it starts from this boundary, and there's no chash that he would have given her a bundle of money besides that to hold on to.
We would assume that it would be worth 200 zuz. Basin has to assume that it wouldn't be bigger than that.
Besna is going to evaluate how much from this boundary and on, how much is going to be 200 zuz. And we'll stop. We'll make the
We
border.
don't know. Maybe he gave less than that or more than that.
And that doesn't make a difference. He has to give 200 zuz. I mean, more than that, depends what it says in the ksuba. Is there Tosefos or not? Besna sees in the ksuba how much he owes her. And now she's collecting the ksuba. So we'll figure out from this border and on how much is 200 zuz.
Because that's what he would have meant.
He has to give it. That's not. I wasn't so clear that all these things about giving a bundle or giving,
When he gave land,
even if he gave land,
Lasky,
yeah, no. So here the question wasn't about being mochel. It wasn't that she was mochel. He designated this. He didn't say that this is the only ksuba. He says when you're going to collect, here it is. This is going to be the set piece of land that you collect from here. But the Mishnah said before
and
that
obviously it has to be
everything,
obligated to whatever
and
he's
even if
obligated.
and even if this gets washed away, this gets flooded, still he has to give something else. It doesn't mean that this is the ksuba. So here the question is if he would have given her a different bundle besides that. So Bnei said it could be that since he only gave her one boundary, so it wasn't a defined piece of land, so that's not considered designated, and therefore he might have given her something else to be the tzrori, to be the bundle. But Pamadisa says no, that they don't need a shvua. There's no chash he gave her something else. This is what he decided to give her as the yichud. So there's no chash that he would have given her something else. The ilchasa below shvua. Once again, we pass him like Pamadisa. You don't need a shvua because no chash he gave her another bundle, so she doesn't have to swear that I didn't get anything else. And the last bonus we get here doesn't seem to have to do with ksuba, but also it's going to be a machlokas Pamadisa and Bnei Masa Machasya. Amala Edim. Excuse me. Someone told Adam, write a contract and sign it and give it to him. So it depends. If they also made a kinyan, they made a kinyan with this man, the man who's giving, the one who's giving a present. Rashi says he's giving a present of land, mandas karka, and he said, write a document, sign it, give it to him. If they made a kinyan, so then you don't have to ask him again before they go to write the contract, the document, and to hand it over to the recipient. They don't have to ask the giver if he still is in the same opinion. They don't have to take advice from him again, counsel from him. The mluchi is to take counsel. They don't have to take counsel from him again to ask him if he still wants to, because there was a kinyan, so he owns it already. The recipient owns it, and now you can write a star for him. But lo kanomine, they didn't make a kinyan. He said the thing. He said write, sign, and give it to him, but he didn't make a kinyan. Machlokes, if he might have retracted from Padisa Amri Lo Tzarich L'Mluchei Bei, but Padisa says he doesn't have to. He also don't have to ask him if he still wants to do it. He could just write the contract and give it to the recipient. But you do have to ask again. He might have retracted. And on this, we do paskin like B'nei Masa Machasya. Out of the four cases, we paskin in this case like B'nei Masa Machasya. He might have retracted. You do have to ask again. So those were three cases that we had extra bonus because of Pumpadisa and Masa Machasya. Two of them were Baksuba, but it all came in because of the first case of Ksubas Ben Different, which we said over there that they don't collect from Mishabadim because Yarson Tanan, and they really, the sugi should really be mamash in the parak before on the word Yarson. That's where it belongs. It's Machlokes how be the Mishnah. Is it Yarson or is it Yazbun? So why did the Gemara wait until here? Still don't know. The Gemara continues back to the Mishnah. The question was if somebody wrote Tosefes, besides the man of Messiah, he wrote more, he decided to write more, hundreds cooking kesef, whatever he added on, and then they divorced or he died from the Erison. Does she have a right to get it or not? Machlokes Tanakama says yes, go back. Rabbi Elazar ben Azari said no, only the man of Messiah, you don't get the Tosefes. Itma, Rabbi Nasan. Machlokes between these two Amarim, Rav and Rabbi Nasan, Chadam Halacha Rabbi Elazar ben Azari, Chadam and Halacha Rabbi Elazar ben Azari. Machlokes he passed like that. We don't know yet who, but somebody, one of them passed like Rabbi Elazar ben Azari, you don't get from Erison the Tosefes, and the other one does not pass like Rabbi Elazar ben Azari, you pass like Tanakama, that even from Erison also you get Tosefes. The Gemara is going to try to figure out who holds what. Tistayim, the Rabbi Nosson, who the Amar Halacha Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. I could bring you a proof that Rabbi Nosson is the one who says that you do pass like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that she does not get the Tosefes from Erison. We find other places Rabbi Nosson goes according to our estimation. To Umdana is how we estimate, how we evaluate, how we assume. We look at something and we are omeid. Omeid das means our estimation, and we could pass according to our understanding or what? Assumption. So the Gemara makes it sound like that's the machlokes, that we understand that he only meant to give it if there's going to be nisuin, and like nobody argues in that assumption. But is it enough to trust our assumption? Do we act upon our assumption? So I can bring you other places where we have Nas and Paskin that you do Paskin according to our assumption. You could assume and evaluate, and that's enough to make a psak and to act on it. And that'll be a reason that in our case also, we pass like Elazar ben Azariah, that since the assumption is that he didn't mean to give it only if there was an asuin, you're not going to be able to collect. What do you see if Nasan holds the go basam? Then a different case altogether. Dam Rabbi Nasan Allah Shem ben Shizuri ben Mesukan uve truma smaiser shel demai. So I think that the real point that Gemara is making is the first point. I'm not sure if it's on the second point also. Rabbi Nassim Pascal like Rabbi Shimon Shizuri as far as Mesukan. What's Mesukan? Mesukan means somebody in danger, somebody who's dying. So Rashi says that the case would be that somebody wrote Kisvu get l'ishti. He said write a get for my wife, but he didn't say to give it. Okay, writing a get, not giving it is nothing. So if someone said write a get and give it, so you listen and you write a get and give it. What if you only said Kisvu get l'ishti? So the question is, we could attribute the fact that he only said Kisvu because he was not put together. He was nervous. Here talks about a case where he was Yossi B'Shayo. He's leaving, going on the plane. Before he goes on the plane, he says to witnesses, he says Kisvu get lishti, and he forgot to say Kisvu tenu. So we could assume it's because he's going on board. He's getting nervous. He's nervous. He's going on. Maybe today is different because going on a plane is not so nervous. But in those days, he was going on a ship, and who knows what's going to happen. He's going out into the desert, so he was not calm. Maybe he forgot to say the word tenu, and that's assumed. He's worried about his life.
Oh, it's more than one.
In commotion, like in commotion. Somebody who is in turmoil, agitated. Okay, so over there, it seems that everybody would agree that if he's in a state that we see that he's nervous and he's agitated, so then we could assume the reason why he forgot to say tnu is because he forgot, but he really meant to give it also. He didn't just mean to write it. Rabbi Shimon Shizuri says even in Masukan, Afam Masukan, even if he's a person who's dying, that's also enough reason to assume that he really meant it. He forgot because he's dying. And that's called the Omer Adas. That's called the Umdana. That we estimate that he also meant to say the word tenu and we act upon it. So you see that Rav Nassan is impressed with our Umdana. So too over here. The next case about Chumas Meiser Shaldemai. I'm not sure if it has to do with our sugya. Over there, Allah is if there was the mai means that you have an amoretz produce, and he says he usually says that he did all the tithing properly, but we don't trust him because he makes mistakes and all kinds of justifications. So we have to do it again. That's called the mai. You have to retithe it, and then he retithed it, and he took off Meiser and Chumas Meiser. And Chumas Meiser is like Chuma, and it fell into a bunch of chulin. Rashi gives the whole story, and it's going to be a big hefsed because if it fell into chulin, the whole thing becomes asa now because there's some Chumas Meiser mixed in, and it's not batel, too little to be batel. So it's a big hefsed. So Shimon Shizuri says that you could ask Amoretz if he tithed it, and if he says yes, you can believe him because of a hefsed, because of the loss. And Taisus says here there has something to do about that. The Amoritz is also scared of Chumas Meiser. He wouldn't if he knows the story. They made Chumas Meiser out of this. If he really had not tied properly, he'll say, "I didn't tie." I don't know if that's what the Gemara means. That also has to do something about Umdana. Right? Chumas Meiser is the same severity as right. But it could be the Amoritz thinks that if I didn't take off the Meiser, so it's not chayv in Chumas Meiser. He has a justification that if I take off Meiser, then it's chayv Chumas Meiser. If I don't take off Meiser, so it's not chayv Chumas Meiser. But here, once the person did take off Meiser and made Chumas Meiser out of it, then he gets nervous. And if he lied, like he would Truma, right? Same way he would say the truth for Truma, so he'll say the truth maybe also for Chumas Meiser.
Even though it's more money.
Right. Could be, and now we'll admit. So I'm not sure if the Gemara means that also. Rashi doesn't mention anything about this fact that Amar is going to be scared of Trumas Meiser. So it could be that Rashi just learns that the first point of the Gemara Masukan. He said it all together. He said we pass like a Shimon Suzuri in two things, and our point is the first thing about a Masukan. Anyway, what does the Gemara want? That you see Shimon Suzuri goes according to Umdana, that if we can assume that the person said Kisvu Gatl Ishti, he meant also Kisvu Tanu, even though he didn't say so. We go according to our assumptions. So too in our case, the whole case of Elazar ben Azariah that he gave Tosefes Suba, we could assume he meant it only if he's going to succeed in doing the Nisuin. But in the Erison alone, he didn't mean to give the Ksuba, and therefore she can't collect it. That's what the Gemara starts off, that Tistayim, let us assume that Rabbi Nassan is the one who passes like Elazar ben Azariah. And Rav does not, because that was Machlokas. Rav and Rabbi Nassan, one says yes, one says not. But the Gemara is going to jump up and say no, because Rav also goes Basa Umdana. The Rav also goes Basa Umdana. Do you mean to say that Rav doesn't? I'm going to show you that Rav also goes with the Umdana, and therefore that can't be the Machlokas. We can't say the Machlokas if you pass like Elazar ben Azariah, you go with Umdana, because everybody else also go with Umdana. But Itmar, Aman Shchimei Ra, Shekosov Kinyan. Aman Shchimei Ra, somebody is dying. Shchimei Ra, he's sick from sickness. He's dying from sickness. Means he's dying. Shchimei Ra means the person who's dying. So he has special kinyanim that the Chazal realized that it's hard for him to make a kinyan, and till they make a kinyan, he wants to give things away, and if he doesn't, the Rashi brings down that he's going to be Shemati Torah Daito, that he's going to go crazy because he's so nervous that he wants to give away his estate the way he wants to, and now they have no time to make a kinyan. So they made that. If the Shchimei,
who's writing?
in the matana. But first, that's what a Shchimei means, that usually he doesn't have to write a kinyan. Usually it doesn't have to be a kinyan in the shtar. Right. But here, the Shchimei also made a kinyan. So that's the question. What is he doing? If he's giving it as a Shchimei.
He wrote about it. What is the box?
It's in the matana. In the shtar matana, it says also that he made a kinyan. Rashi says, Man Shchimei in the tzricha kinyan. In the contract, it says also they wrote it down, and they wrote a kinyan also. That's the case, that you have a contract, a document that says that a Shchimei Ra gave a present and he made a kinyan. So that sounds like, what is he doing? If he's a Shchimei Ra, he doesn't have to make a kinyan. And if it's a kinyan, then it's not a man Shchimei Ra. What is it?
I see.
So that's the issue. That's a man Shchimei Ra that also is written in the document that he made a kinyan. Ra, bebei Ra, b'shmei the Rav Amri, akavei atrei Rishi. In the yeshiva of Rav, they say the name of Rav, that he wrote it on two Rishi. Rashi says Rechesh is a kind of an animal, like it says in the Megillah Esther, so we don't know what kind of animal it is. The more I think over there says that's one of the words we don't know how to translate, but it's a kind of an animal. Some I think to translate it as a chariot, I'm not sure. But we'll say
he rode on the chariot.
He rode it on two animals. That's like he rode two horses. We would say that he has choice of two horses to ride on. He could ride it. He ride a horse of a Shchimei Ra. He could ride. It means I don't mean a horse. I mean like in the car. He could ride. It's like some kind of the vehicle. He has two vehicles, and he's riding both vehicles.
Well, some people always try to do the most.
But here the most are a little bit contradictory. That's going to be the problem that they're going to see right away. The Gemara is going to say that there's two different kochos that are working over here, and he wants to use both of them. So what is it? So Rabbi says he has both benefits. Maybe that's what you mean to say, that he has both. That's in a second. And Shmuel says, I don't know what to do with this because it contradicts itself. So then the Gemara explains, as put in parentheses, the explanation of the two tzadim. The Beirav Mishmei the Rav Amri Akavei Trei Rishi. What does that mean? It has both benefits. It has the benefit of a present which was given by a healthy person, and it has the benefit of a present which was given by a dying person. Why is that? What are these benefits? And I'm not sure if it's called a benefit. It's like a manas boy. What does it mean? When a sick man gives a present away, and it's dying, a dying man gives a present, and then he gets better. A miracle happened, he stands up. I'm all better. So he has a right to retract because I only gave it to you because I was dying, but I got better. If a regular healthy person gives a present, then if he can't change his mind. So here, since he made a kinyan, so he took away the Shchimei Ra part. He says, I'm giving it as a healthy man, since he made a kinyan. So he says it has the din of manas bori. That if he gets better, he cannot retract. It's very strong. He made it stronger than a regular Shchimei Ra. A regular Shchimei Ra, when he gives a present, he always has the right to retract if he gets better. But here he wanted to make it stronger. So he wrote it. maybe it's about right, not the best for the shemra. It's made it stronger. It gave it two strengths. It gave two strengths. It made it the recipient is very strong now because he got it on two kochos. He got it on the koch of a bori that it's irretractable. That even if the man, the giver, is it gets better, he cannot retract. So that's he gave it the koch of a manas bori. And also it has the strength of a present given by a dying man that he has the ability to give a loan. Can you give somebody a loan? Someone owes you money. Can you give it to somebody else? You don't have the money. You just say, someone owes me money, I'm giving it to you. Can you make such a kinyan? Can you transfer?
I'm giving the loan.
The loan. Can I transfer a loan to somebody else?
To me.
Right. And can I give it to you that it should take effect that you own it now? So usually a bari cannot do that. He has to have the money. But a shemera could. And if he says albasi laploni, the money that's owed to me, I'm giving to somebody. So it happened. It works. Albasi laploni, it works. That's what Rav says, that this way of doing something has two strengths. It has the strength of a manas bari, and it has the strength of a manas shemera. Since he said two things, he made a kinyan. So the kinyan makes that it should be considered a manas bari that he cannot retract. And the fact that it's a shemera means that it gives him possibility even to give somebody a loan. Ushmuel Amar. I don't know what it is because I don't know what he means. Maybe since he's doing it in the channel of a manas bari that when he makes a star and makes a kinyan, you have to give over the star. It's not enough just to write the kinyan. You have to give it over. Someone has to make a kinyan on the star. So since he gave it by writing a kinyan, maybe he meant that it shouldn't take effect until it's given over. And by the way, if the man died, it wasn't given over, so it doesn't take effect. It means he doesn't know for sure that it's considered a manas shemera. Means according to Rav did give it the both benefits. It made it very strong for the recipient. And Shmuel says maybe you're not coming at all because maybe he meant to give it as a manas bari, and manas bari would be that you have to give over the star. You didn't give over the star. You can't give over the star after that. Anyway, what did the Gemara want from all this? The main thing the Gemara wanted is to show that Rav takes very strongly our umdina dedas, that when we try to figure out what did this man mean, that's called that we are evaluating what he meant and we act upon it. So back to our subject. There was a question where Abloza ben Azariah, a case where somebody wrote Tosefes, his kala. He wrote more than the regular Mana Masayim, he wrote Tosefes. And then he divorced her or he died from Erison. Does he mean to give it? So we said so far that Umdan Das, our evaluation would say that he did not mean to give it, only after Nesuin. So who's the author? And then Machokusi Pascal like Rav and Rav Nosson. So we showed that Rav Nosson by Masukin, by Meshuvin Shazui, we see he holds to go Basa Umdana. So he's the one who holds to go Abloza ben Azari. But Rav also holds to go with Umdana the Das. A different Rai altogether. A different place where you see the Rav goes according to the Umdana. So he should be the one who passes like Abloza ben Azari. But one of them does not pass like Abloza ben Azari. So we're stuck. Who's the one who does not pass like Abloza ben Azari? So the Gemara on the top of the next page, Daf Nun Vav. Ella Tavayu Azli Basa Umdana. Everybody in the Rav and Rav Nosson, both of them should agree that you do go with the Umdana. But the question is, what is the Umdana? How do we estimate? How do we evaluate? How do we assume was the das of this Chassan who wrote Tosefes? Is he only giving it for the Nesuin, or is he even giving it for the Erison alone? Mandam Alacha Shampit, the one who says Lachas like Abloza ben Azariah, that's good because he holds that the Umdana is that it's only giving it when he's going to be the Nesuin. Even though he wrote it earlier, but he meant that it shouldn't take effect only if I'm going to go through it, the Nesuin happens. The Chibas Bia, the fact that he has relations with her, then he meant to give the extra. But Manda Amma Ein Alacha, Hachanami Omdan Daitahu, Yishim Akruve Daitahu, Akruvala Daita, that just the Kiruv Das alone, the fact that they're getting close, the fact that they are Erison, the fact that the relationship of an Erison is also some kind of a Kiruv Das. How do you say Kiruv Das in English? Closeness, affinity, whatever you want to say. So that is also a reason why somebody would want to give the Tosefes. Now that's the question. When a person gives Tosefes, is he giving it because they're going to be in the same house? That's called Nesuin. Or even not, just the fact that they are not engaged, but fiancé, whatever word you're going to call, even the fact that they're betrothed, that's also enough. That's enough of a happiness to him that he's willing to give it to Tosefes, even if it's going to break off from the Erison alone. He's going to die or he's going to divorce her. But the fact that they were that stage of togetherness alone, that's enough that he would want that she should get the Tosefes. So everyone holds everyone holds that you go with Kiruv Das, but the question is, everyone else you go with Umdan Das, you go with Umdana, with the assumption of what we could assume, but the question is, what do we assume? Do we say that we understand he meant to give it only for Nesuin, or that he meant to give it even for Erison. So there's a machlokes in Pascha like Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbana. They're not arguing if you go with the Das. The question is, what is the Das? Is the Das that he meant only Nesuin or even Erison? Now the rest of the Gemara is easy. The rest of the Gemara, another 10 lines or so. What do you Pascha like? Yosef, Rav Chanina, Kamed, Rav Yana, all the green is going to be those who do pass like Elazar ben Azariah. All the pink or red is going to be the ones that don't pass like Elazar ben Azariah. That's going to be the machlokes. So easy Gemara. Rav Chanina was sitting in front of Rav Yana, the Kama, and Rav Chanina was saying, Rav Chanina Krua, they put in the word Kuf Reish Aleph, that he's called Rav Chanina Krua. Some say maybe because he taught Chumash, he taught Mikra. So maybe that's the reason why he's called it. The Kama, or maybe a different reason why he's called Krua. The Gemara is going to assume that it has to say a pun on his name. Allah Elazar ben Azariah. Chanina said Allah is like Elazar ben Azariah, that she doesn't get Tosefes from Erison. Amalei Rabbi Yanai told to Rabbi Chanina, Puk Kavi Kavach Libra, go and call out your calling outside. It means don't say this in the basement, say it outside. And they say it's a pun on the word Rabbi Chanina Krua. His name was Rabbi Chanina Krua, maybe because he used to be the caller, the crier, the town crier.
Call out your calling.
Call out your calling outside. Go outside. If you want to say this, don't say it over here. Say it outside. It means in other words, it's not true. Ain't Allah Elazar ben Azariah. So what do we have so far? Rabbi Chanina Krua holds like Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbana says no, it's not like Elazar ben Azariah. Amr Rav Yitzchak Bar Avdim Mishum Rabbeinu. The question who Rabbeinu is, Rashi says it's Rav, Rashi says maybe not. Allah Elazar ben Azariah, that she doesn't get Tosefes from Erison. Amr Rav Nachman, Amr Shmuel, Allah Elazar ben Azariah. Also, if Rav Nachman said the name of Shmuel like that, but Rav Nachman Didei, but that was in the name of Shmuel. But Rav Nachman himself says, "En Allah Elazar ben Azariah." But like the Tanakh, that she does get everything. Now, Rav Nachman Nami Allah Elazar ben Azariah. This also is the name of Rav Nachman, means what does Rav Nachman himself hold? So we said a second ago that Rav Nachman himself says, "En Allah," but now Doi is saying the name of Rav Nachman, that yes, Allah Elazar ben Azariah. The Yafa gav the lot of Nachman Dama called Daina the Don Rav Elazar ben Azariah Hachivachi Davi. There's also a quotation from Rav Nachman that he cursed. Rav Nachman cursed somebody that would pass like a Elazar ben Azariah. Any judge that's going to judge like Elazar ben Azariah, such and such had happened to him. It doesn't say what. It doesn't say what. It doesn't say what the curse is, but such and such had happened to him. That means that
A couple of days ago, he did something similar. And he said, who falls with the din of who was it?
I don't remember.
Lot is the curse.
Right is the curse. Yeah.
He said it's very charish.
Oh, yes. He said, "I'll take away your pal. I'll take away your mansion if you." Yeah. You're good. Here he cursed. So he said that if anybody's going to pass like him, I'm going to give him a curse. Such and such had happened to him. Okay, the question what Rav Nachman himself held. But Afilu Vachi, Allah Elazar ben Azariah. That the Gemara says that even though, I don't know who's talking yet, but maybe this was the Na'adoi, the Allah is like Elazar ben Azariah. I'm not sure who's talking, but the Gemara ends up, Allah Lamaisa, Elazar ben Azariah. That we do pass like Elazar ben Azariah, that the Gemara is passing now. That question what Rav Nachman said over here. Some said yes, the name of Rav Nachman, but here the passing is Elazar ben Azariah that she does not get Tosefes Ksuba if from Erison, only till the Nesuin, only from the Nesuin. Okay.
That's the whole question.
Which thing?
The whole thing is about Nesuim or Erison.
Let's go back to the Mishnah here. Here's the Mishnah. Here's the Mishnah. This is the Mishnah at the beginning of the parak. This was today's Mishnah in the blue. Here's the blue. Here's the blue. This is the Mishnah at the beginning of the parak. I'm scrolling back. Parak Afalpi. This is today's parak.
Where are you starting? Afalpi?
Where did I start from today?
Just now, what did you just say? Afalpi? Are you starting at the beginning of the Mishnah?
No.
That's what I'm asking. Where are you starting?
From the blue.
I missed the Mishnah.
Okay, we'll do the Mishnah again. We have 1 minute. That the first part of the Mishnah is that you could give more than the mana masayim.
Yeah.
Alpha Pisha will still go masayim, but mana. If he wants to add on, he could, as much as he wants to. That's the first Gemara, first Mishnah. Second Mishnah says that if she was widowed or divorced, either from Erison or from Nesuin, she collects everything. That's Tanakh. Even from Erison, you get the Tosefes. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, from the Nesuin, you get everything. But from the Erison, only mana masayim, because he only meant to give it to her if he's going to marry her. And that's what we pass like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. That's our Gemara just now. Allah Rabbi Elazar ben
Azariah only if they were Nesuin or even
right. Only from Nesuin. But
not sure.
That's not sure. That's not sure. He says no. When the Erison, she doesn't collect. She only gets the mana masayim. She doesn't get the Tosefes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kalta. So we'll be in a minute or two with Tehillim. Thank you, thank you.
What?
The film is 6:13, maybe that's Gandhi sometimes? I'm not sure.
That film is 60. I think it's